Hello. I wanted to share a personal story about my experience with flying anxiety. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't even realize it I didn't even realize it despite the fact that I was throwing up at the airport. I'll tell you the backstory here. So, when I was 23, I was going to Italy for a trip with my then boyfriend, who's now my husband, and we were going for 2 weeks. And this was the very first time that I was ever going on an international trip. And so naturally, there was some stress involved with planning for the trip and, getting to the airport on time. And, there was going to be customs, like there was all this stuff. And so naturally, there was some stress there. And when we get to the airport, we get through security, we decide, we're going to stop and grab some breakfast. And I remember sitting down to eat. And as I start eating, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be sick. And I literally got up and went to the bathroom and started throwing up. And I came back and talked to Justin about it and was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I didn't even realize that I had anxiety because I wasn't feeling worried. I just instantly was nauseous and had to throw up. So I really didn't have any insight at the time around any anxiety. So I just, took some motion sickness medicine and we carried on with our trip. And so now, 13 years later, I've experienced flying anxiety consistently when I've traveled. And so I've done a lot of work reflecting on why this is. And I've come to learn something, so I wanted to share that with you. I think that a big piece of it was the context of my life. As I said, I was 23 at the time, which was a time in my life when I was in graduate school, which was a very stressful time of life. So there was a lot of change and a lot of stress happening. The 20s is a time period that's really common for anxiety disorders or other mental health disorders to come to fruition because it's a time of stress and change in people's life. You think about graduating from high school, moving, graduating from college or settling down or having kids. That's a big decade of a lot of change. So mental health can really erupt during that time. So I was experiencing a lot of change in my life, just in general. I think there was probably some baseline stress that was there. And then, of course, this event of going to Italy was a new situation for me. I had never flown across the ocean. And I don't really remember this, but I have to imagine I was like, ooh, that's a little scary thought. You're flying across the ocean for a long period of time. And so, there was this heightened anxiety then at the time of the airport, right? That actual stress, and it made my body respond. So when I started vomiting, right, that was my body reacting to stress. And this is what happens, when we have our fight or flight system kick on, our body makes changes in order to protect us. It's really fascinating. And one of the changes that happens is with our digestive system. So when we are in a fight or flight situation, a survival situation, our body says, we don't have time to digest food because we need to save energy to either fight for our life or run. We need that strength and energy to do that and not digest food. And if you've just eaten, then we got to eliminate it. Hence why I was vomiting, right? My body was saying, we're in danger, we got to get rid of this. And so the physical, response that I was experiencing was unusual and I didn't know why. I wasn't making the connection. And so my brain naturally is looking what's the threat here, right? That's what our brain is so good at, trying to help us survive, that it's trying to draw a connection of what's the threat so that we can avoid it or, do something about it. And unfortunately, it was making the connection that flying was dangerous. And that sucks because it's not, right? It's one of the safest forms of travel. It opens up so many opportunities to go new places or to go far away. And so then this fear set in around traveling and what can happen. And of course, then the older you get, it's just normal that like life becomes a little bit more vulnerable. We start to realize we're not so invincible. And I think as I've aged, that reality is present too, that, bad things happen. And so that paired with that memory and that association every time I fly just gives me tons of, stress hormones, really. So it's not to say that I don't experience any anxiety when I fly now, but I'm way more effective at handling it. I don't avoid travel, even though sometimes I want to. I also have effective skills to help me get through it. And I remember that, this is my brain trying to protect me. And if I flew more often, I probably would be able to change that relationship to that fear a little bit more quickly. But it's so seldom that I fly that my brain thinks it's a new thing every time. And so it gives me the same message. So I really come to expect it. And my body just reacts, and I just, go, okay, I know the connection now. And so it's not such a surprise or a shock. It's not something that sticks. So I'll be sharing more videos about my experience with flying anxiety. If it's something that you struggle with, I totally get it. I'm obviously been there. So I hope that you don't let the fear stop you, because it'll only make your world smaller. So if you value traveling, get some help for it, because there is help for it. And we have a workshop that we offer for anxious flyers. We have one coming up in September. I'll put the link in the bio if it's something that would be useful to you. You can check it out. Otherwise, stay tuned for more videos on my experience. Hope that's helpful. Thanks.